Hello, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Have all the board members had a chance to look at the agenda? There's no changes I'm aware of.
I motion to approve this evening's agenda.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. Superintendent's report, Mr. Jesse.
Thank you, Board President Wielander, other board directors, student representatives, staff, family members, and community members. I'll start off. Today I was at Evergreen Elementary. It was a really nice visit. I was in a number of classrooms. Really touching to have a number of our students, especially some of our students who receive multilingual services, reading to me. They were doing word games, working off their units. A number of them were going through their book baggies, explaining why they liked their books. Some of them were super proud that they were in chapter books, so it was really nice. Just a mix of genre, nonfiction. I learned a lot about some specifically wolves today. We had a young man just able to express a lot of detail about how interested he is in wolves, so that was nice. Really nice setting. A special recognition to Miss Acosta, who's the third grade teacher there. She just really invited me in, and she was really trying to show me all the things that she had been working on with her students. And being in a dual language classroom, she is definitely working really hard to get kids into literacy and definitely building their skills. So good on her for sure. And I just had a real quick note, special thank you to maintenance. We had a little bit of an issue with the HVAC in the Performing Arts Center at SHS, and they were working to resolve that issue. So thanks for working overtime and getting that, because we had a performance there over the weekend. So I think it was starting to get cold, and so it was nice to at least get that resolved in an emergency manner. So thank you so much for the maintenance team for the Shelton School District. So with that, that'll conclude my comments.
Thank you. All right, and now we have a presentation from the Cedar High School students.
Good evening, President Wielander and the members of the board. Thank you for this amazing opportunity for us to share our project with you. I believe what Cedar does is very important and really helps the way that I learn, and it helps the way I engage with others, and I think it's really gonna help my future. And I'm very glad that we have a school like Cedar in our school district. Without further ado, let me introduce who I have with me here.
Elena White.
And Ryan Simmons.
And I'm Anderson Porter. The three of us participated in plant bio during the first trimester in a quadrat poster project. As you'll learn shortly, a quadrat is different from a quadrant. All the 10th graders are required to take this class.
So we began this research project in the spring of the 2023 and 2024 school year. We constructed a 1 meter by 1 meter quadrat, which is different from a quadrant. A quadrant is just a square meter stick used for like biology study or ecology. We made an analysis of the plants that grow in our study area, which the pictures here are on top of our hill that we used to study the native and non-native plants. 28 students continued this work for the goal of learning the clear-cut regulations. It is a Cedar goal to continue monitoring and studying this area for our campus.
So the process of the quadrat that we use was to find an area that has organisms and all types of plants around them, and to create a square with 4-meter sticks, and to toss the quadrat in randomly. To identify these plants and other organisms, we used an app called iNaturalist. After identifying the plants, the plant count and how many plants were inside of the quadrat, we also tracked the percentage of plants, like overall. And so iNaturalist helps find coordinates to where it is, so we know exactly where it was on the hill. And it also helps identify each plant, so we understand what we're learning about, and that's very important, so we know the difference between a native plant, non-native plant, invasive, non-invasive, etc. And the last step is to repeat step 3 through 6. So, and this happens 20 times. So you just toss it, the quadrat, and keep going with a group of 4.
So after analyzing our data with the 8 groups, they reported all having grass being their number 1 in all of their quadrats. 16.6 of those quadrats all had grass, and 12.4 of those quadrats all had Scotch broom. After analyzing each group data, 12 plants were found native, and 13 plants were non-native to our hill.
Some of the next steps we'll be taking is collecting data of the percentages of how much plants grow throughout the winter and into spring. So then we can see how the growth is throughout the different seasons. And some of the things we will be doing differently is making sure each group has 20 points of data for each of their quadrats, and cutting the hill into like quadrants to make sure that we don't have repeats of the data, so then we have more accurate data throughout all of the quadrats we do. And then the last thing we'll be doing differently is assigning different roles to each person into the groups.
I would also like to mention, we started off with a driving question, which is like the main idea of the whole project. And our driving question was, what can we learn from sampling plants within a 1 square meter? And right after we were presented the driving question, we met with our group, which was 8 people, and we signed our group contracts, which is like the agreements that we all abide to, and if we don't agree with those, we will try to resolve it. Any questions?
I was just curious what some of the native plants you discovered are.
Let's see.
It's okay if you can't read it off the graph. The other question, anything surprise you in your study?
I think that one thing that really surprised me in our study was just how many different types of plants are on that hill, and how that hill was once just completely clear cut. There was nothing to it. It was all dirt. And after some time, all of these different plants grew there. And I just think it was really interesting how something could just go from nothing to something pretty big and really important to our school.
It also meant there was a lot of Scotch broom.
I would also like to point out the fact that being able to like just see what's in the quadrat really like helps us get like a perspective of like in retrospect like how many small things are in an area. And I kind of like related it to like the difference between like world history and like Washington history, because you get more specific data.
Great job, thanks.
Okay, next up is community comment. As part of the regular school board meeting, the board welcomes community members to make public comment in person and/or by phone as conditions allow. Please see the full script with call-in instructions and guidelines for community comments displayed on the screen above. First up will be Laura Lynn Rogers.
Good evening, Chair Welander and Board. I'm Laurelyn Rogers, soon to be from 1208 Hemlock, Lewiston, Idaho. I was hoping for a public request, public records request that I did not yet receive, but this being the last meeting of the year, I thought I would speak to it. Without my PRR, I will just say that I am under the impression that certain members of the board do not give any credit to the open comments from the community. However, I want you to realize if you look back a year or so on public comments, 3 members of our community pointed out the shortfall you are experiencing would happen with concrete numbers to support it. One of the parents only wants to help the district her kids are in. One has chosen private school for his children, yet still cares enough to come and share his verifiable concerns. One has no connection other than wanting to keep you all informed. All of them take their time to research and speak to you because they just want to improve Shelton School District for community kids. This is just one example. There's been many examples of caring and verifiable comments I have heard during my time here. Thank you very much.
I believe it's Kyle Christmas.
All right. Thank you. This is my first time at a school board meeting, so thanks all of you. My name is Kyle Christmas. I am a parent, a volunteer, and a member, the treasurer of the PTSO of Evergreen School District. And I would like to at least say a few words about the email we got sort of out of the blue about the Cedar High School being moved onto the Evergreen campus. That email shocked all of us that we spoke to because no one had heard anything about it prior to this. Because we're so involved in the school there, I brought it up to other parents and to teachers there, and no one had any idea that that was something even being talked about or being something that was brought up. So that was one thing. Another thing is I didn't even know that Cedar High School was a thing, which, as we all know, if people are left in the dark, their imaginations run wild. So I looked it up, and very serendipitous that Cedar High School was here to talk about something. That was actually really cool to see and learn about. So just something we didn't know, and a lack of communication around what was happening. The email also didn't provide any sort of information around logistics, safety information, anything like that. So we just wanted to make sure that if something like this happens and impacts, this community and the people involved, more information is shared and the input of those who will be impacted is included. And I mean, I don't imagine you could hold off on this decision until more community members get a say in things, but that would be nice if that could happen. Or because the locations they're being put in are portables, could they be, moved to somewhere better fitting of that? So that is, that's all I have to say. So thank you all.
Thank you. Marilyn Aaron.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to address several significant concerns about the lack of transparency and communication from our superintendent. Time and time again, we see conversations that go in circles where answers are vague, incomplete, or entirely avoided. This approach undermines trust, not only between the superintendent and the board, but also between the district leadership and our community. First, I'd like to address the superintendent's recent claim at the last board meeting about reducing 6 district office positions. This statement is misleading. 2 of those positions, the K-8 athletic director and the special services secretary, are not actually district office positions. While they may be physically housed in the district office, they are funded by sources outside the district office budget. K-8 athletic director is funded through the levy, and the special services secretary is funded by restricted special education funding. Including these roles in the count of the district office reductions is inaccurate and creates a false narrative of significant sacrifices being made at the administrative level. While we're on this topic, since superintendent began at the Shelton School District, he has added at the district office level the bilingual coordinator, director of student wellness, HR manager, and data manager, to name a few. These additions contradict the narrative of sacrifice and austerity at the administrative level. Meanwhile, the majority of the burden of budget cuts has fallen disproportionately on certain staff. This inequity raises serious questions about fairness and the prioritization of resources in our district. True leadership is built on trust, which relies on honesty, openness, and clear communication. A leader must ensure the board members, staff, and the public have access to the information needed to understand decisions and their rationale. Without this foundation, skepticism and frustration are inevitable. I urge the administration to provide a more accurate and transparent portrayal of staffing and budget needs and changes, as trust cannot thrive when decisions and their impacts are presented misleadingly. Yes, other districts across the state and country are struggling with budget deficits, but this is our district, our community. They're our kids. Instead of focusing elsewhere, we need to focus on what we can do right here to move forward and ensure success for our children. It's about what's best for them, not excuses or comparisons to others. You see, I grew up here. My mother was a substitute teacher. This has been my home. I graduated from Shelton High School. My father was a driver's ed teacher at Shelton High School. My grandfather drove logging truck for Simpson. My kids go here. I live here, and unlike the superintendent, I spend my hard-earned money in this community. I buy groceries, shop at local businesses, attend local events. I pay my taxes here. I have profound roots in this community, and I talk to people, a lot of them. I've built trust with them because I care deeply about this community and our kids. Trust is something you earn. That starts with clear communication, honesty, and transparency. It means ensuring that staff aren't being pitted against one another because of incomplete or inconsistent information. Right now, there are gaps in communication, and a lack of clarity are fostering blame and division, and that is unacceptable. The lack of clear, concise, and transparent communication has created a toxic divide between the representatives of staff. This divisiveness is counterproductive, and it is the responsibility of leadership to ensure everyone has accurate information and to foster unity, not conflict. I got 3 more paragraphs, so I guess I'll email you, unless somebody wants to give me their time.
Dean Jewett. Dean.
I'll give my time to Marilyn.
Just who is that, really quick? Lisa Burnett. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. The board also has a responsibility to lead with accountability. Blind trust in the superintendent's words does a disservice to our whole community. You were elected by your community to ask hard questions, demand straightforward answers, and listen to the concerns of the public you were elected to represent. Ignoring those voices only deepens the divide and erodes confidence in this board and the district's leadership. We need a superintendent and a board who prioritize transparency, accountability, and collaboration. It's time to rebuild trust and move forward together for the sake of our students, staff, and schools. It's time to stop ignoring the concerns of your community and start leading with integrity and accountability. Here is my personal recommendation, Mr. Jesse. You could forfeit your 6% raise that you convinced the board to give you in June, and maybe that would be one step forward in gaining trust back from your staff. You have an essential role here. You were elected by the community, and you need to put those needs first. This district needs leadership that prioritizes collaboration, fairness, and honesty. It's time to rebuild trust, work together, and focus on what's best for our students and schools. Thank you.
Dean Jewett.
So do you guys see a common theme here? First, we'll talk about Wyeth Jesse having a yawn attack while we're trying to have conversations. And we'll talk about Matt not even looking at people for the first 58 seconds when they get up here and have a conversation. There's a lot that happens with nonverbal communication. And when we see a superintendent just nodding and smiling, I mean, what is that? Is that a bobblehead at the Mariners game? I don't get it. Concerns about the state of our district's financial management and to urge you to take a more proactive and direct role. This is addressed to the board in addressing these issues. As representatives of our community, your responsibility is to ask the hard questions and to seek clarifying answers and hold your leadership accountable to the highest standards of transparency. Do we do that each and every day or not? I don't think we do. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this many people here. Wyeth, question for you. How long did you spend in the classroom? Most admins have to go through and spend a certain amount of time in a classroom to qualify to get their admin degree. My wife got her admin degree, and Jesse fired her. How many consultants did you bring in, Wyeth? And are they your drinking buddies? You've got a consultant, you got 2 consultants here. Now, you can say that they're paid with a different grant, but they come out of this year's budget, and then you're paid back. Could that money be saved for a couple teachers or a couple paraeducators? We sent a district employee to the East Coast. How much did that cost us? How much did that take out of the budget? We have district employees' wives being hired. An update on the charging station. I'd heard that it became public, so now they're trying to quash it and or not do it. I wonder what that is. I wonder if there's any truth to that. We had to borrow money just to make payroll. Are you serious? Do you guys understand why you can't make your budget? And it's not the word salad and the dance that we had last meeting with Wyeth Jesse up here. It has to do with enrollment. The school gets what, $18,000+ per student? And when you have enrollment that drops down to homeschooling, take a look at the facts. How is homeschooling grown in Washington State? It's exponentially growing. So there goes your funding. It's not your cost of your food. It's not the cost of your power bill that you can't pay. I got 22 seconds left, Matt, so keep an eye on that clock. So there you go. Have at it. Thanks, guys.
Heather Kowalski.
My name is Heather Kowalski. I work for the school district, and I really didn't want to be here today talking about RIFs and people possibly losing their jobs, but I want to address the teachers and the community. In my position with safety and security, I work with every building in some way, some more than others, but I know most of the teachers and almost all the support staff. And of course, at the high school and OBJ, you all know me. I've been the union president for the paraeducators and food service for 4 years. I would hope that my hard work has built up some trust and respect from all of you. I know that you trust and respect and have love for the people you work with in your buildings and in other buildings. You've known many of these people for years. You rely on them. You've literally shared sweat, blood, and tears with them. What is happening now with the rifts coming up, and they are coming up no matter what, is tearing us apart. Look at all of your union leaders. We've all been working as hard as we can to save as many jobs as we can and trying to figure out how many of our members, how they're going to survive this year. We shouldn't be pitting ourselves against each other or the district office. This is the time for us all to work together and make some sacrifices for the good of everyone, because not only do we lose, but our students lose. I see those kids get off the bus at elementary school and high-five the paras. I see the littles hugging the custodians at lunch. I see them chatting in the office with the office personnel or hiding there to have a safe space. We're always saying every student needs to find their person that will be their safe space. That person's not always a teacher. Our students need all of us, every single one of us. Can you think of anyone in your building that could disappear and none of the students would notice or care? Now imagine 3 or 4 of them just going away. We need to stop pointing fingers. We need to understand the realities of the situation. Just because your position might be safe this year, it doesn't mean it will be next year. And who's going to suffer when there are no more paras helping struggling students? The ones who just need that little bit of help to get to reading level. That one that needs to walk to calm down with their favorite person, and now that person's gone. What does that do to them? And to our community who want to punish Wyeth for whatever their personal reasons are you willing to let our students with the highest needs suffer? What is less staff going to accomplish? You hear a lot about bullying in schools through Facebook. Do you think that that will go away with less supervision, less behavior techs, fewer mental health services, less supervision, and fewer counselors? We have some of the highest needs in the state. Our students deal with abuse, neglect, drugs, mental health issues, and it isn't getting any better. The school is their only safe place and the only place they will be taught how to regulate themselves, how to treat others, and how to make friends.
I'm giving Heather Smith giving my time to Heather Kowalski.
Thank you.
It might be the only place they get food or that they are warm. We have staff that help kids with clean clothes and help them fix their hair in the morning so they don't feel out of place. Who's going to be there for those kids when they're running on less than a skeleton crew? So is our community going to step up? Please come to our buildings. Please fill out that volunteer packet. Please talk to the admin. Come in. Volunteer to supervise a lunch. Walk the hallways. See the 90% of those students succeeding. See that good. Share that good with our community on Shelton Talks. Don't tear us down. Build up our community to what we want it to be.
Thank you.
Lori Chappell.
Good evening, community and superintendent and school board members. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lori Chappell, and I am the vice co-president of the ESP. I've worked at the Shelton School District for 22 years. I wanted to speak tonight on the budget situation, and this is a trying time for all, no matter where you fall on the spectrum. Tonight I was told I was an advocate, and I was good to speak because I was loyal to the district. I'd like to restate that I'm loyal to the hardworking people of this district, teachers and classified staff. Today we are coming together, not just as individuals in our respective roles, but hopefully as a united community of educators. Our shared goal is clear: to foster an environment where everyone can thrive and to ensure that no one must face the fear of losing their job, but also doing what is best for the kids, and that is having welcoming, caring staff who want always what is best. In these turbulent times across many districts and many states, we are not alone facing the current budget problems. When the winds of change seem relentless and uncertainty looms, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. We find ourselves caught up in a cycle of anxiety about what the future holds. Today, as I'm speaking to you, I want to emphasize that it is precisely during these times that cooperation, solidarity, and commitment to one another must become our greatest strength to get through this. It may feel at times that our district is just made up of numbers, data, statistics, and we're not important in the whole scheme of things, but remember, we are much more. We are built upon the dedication and talent of the staff that makes up the SSD. Each individual brings unique skills, perspectives, and experiences that contribute to our collective success. So how do we ensure that our workforce remains intact? First and foremost, we must embrace open communication. We need to foster a culture where there's transparency, where the correct information is being shared, so that rumors and unfounded truth do not deter us from the goal of keeping our staff. A place where concerns are raised and heard without fear of retribution. When we really listen to one another, we can identify challenges and work collaboratively to find solutions. How do we find these solutions and make sure that we are not pitted against one another, but working together? As teachers and classified find themselves in competition for limited resources, teachers are clear in the message that they sent in rejecting the MOU. They didn't want to lose pay. They believed it would affect the retirement and several other items I won't go into that they have shared. There are also opinions of it's not my job to save other jobs, along with the district created this mess, and we shouldn't have to fix it. On the other hand, the classified who do not get paid what they are worth stand on the side of advocating the importance of their roles.
I'm Kim Howard. I'd like to cede my time back to Lori.
Okay.
The classified who do not get paid were standing on the side of advocating the importance of their roles in providing a functional school environment. The loss of classified staff would impact the whole district and most certainly devastatingly affect those who would lose their jobs. We try and teach our students to have empathy and compassion for one another, and I'm asking the same. We need to try and put ourselves in one another's shoes to truly understand we need to stand together. Teachers, we need your help to minimize the reduction this year. As we all try to navigate this, we must remember that tension can lead to division. Yet I believe that in times like this, we need to band together and advocate and highlight the importance of both roles in our educational systems. We know that cuts to either groups will have a direct impact on our students' educational experiences. We also know without staff, so many programs and people you count on will not be there to help. With the reduction in staff, larger class sizes, burnout will surely creep in. We will have decreased morale. It will impact all the positive work that we are doing. But in the end, it will affect student outcomes, fewer staff, less to give to our students. Teachers, I want to make it very clear, I am not against you. I have always stood with you. I have worked with incredible teachers over my years here. Teachers that have been amazing mentors and helped me become a better educator. I have taken a stand when people who are not in your shoes daily badmouth the job you are doing. Your job is not an easy one. There are many factors to navigate. Unless someone is in your shoes, they will truly never know how hard and how many hours you put in for your students. Please know that I would fight for you if your jobs were on the line. But yes, sadly, many of your jobs will be on the line once the school year ends. So I'm asking you, please ask questions. Is this a temporary fix? Is it permanent? What is the truth of the whole matter? Don't make assumptions because people's livelihood are on the line. Please reflect on the matter of what we have before us. I also just want to let you all know that my building is extraordinary, regardless of what some may think. We have teachers and classified who give 100% every day. Our admin works tirelessly. We hired 8 new teachers this year. They are all amazing. Please come to our building and see what they do. We have a well-honed classified staff. My fear, though, is not only for the classified staff that I represent, but also for all the newly hired teachers who will also be riffed if we can't find solutions. I can't see my building without teachers or the classified staff in it. It hurts my heart to see what we are trying to create at OMS will be fractured. It is in human nature to find someone or something to blame. Bummer.
Thank you.
Is there anybody online? Okay. Item number 6.1 will be reports from the student board representatives. And we'll start off with Abigail Hurst, Shelton High School.
Next Friday is our Winter Renaissance Assembly. During this assembly, kids will be recognized for academic achievement and along with the winner of our readathon, which is Students versus Teachers. All winter sports are in full swing. Both girls and boys have basketball games going on this week. Tonight is boys basketball, and Wednesday is another boys game, both at 7 p.m. in the Mini-Dome. Girls basketball won multiple games, including the one last night against Rochester. Wrestling has a match this Thursday, the 12th, in the Mini-Dome against Bellarmine Prep at 6 p.m. and varsity is at 7 p.m. Last week, we had Miss Elliott's class visit from Mountain View to participate in our Teach Kids How to Swim program. Seniors have the chance to submit a baby photo to the yearbook to participate in the Guess Who's section. The deadline is closing soon. Today, we had a college visit from Washington State University in the Career Center during both first and second lunch. Bowling is doing very well. Recently, they won against Black Hills, and their next match is this Thursday at Westside Lanes. December 16th through 20th is our Holiday Spirit Week. Monday is Red versus Green. Tuesday is Timber Tuesday. Wednesday is Wear Your Ugly Christmas Sweaters. Holiday Themed Thursday, where you dress as your favorite holiday character. And Friday is Pajama Day for the night before Christmas break. December 2nd, we started the second trimester, and we start winter break this Friday the 20th.
Thank you. Alan Ramirez from Cedar.
Yeah, so we had some pretty big news at Cedar. We had news of moving to a new campus. I will say, even though when the news was broken to the students on, I think, was it last Tuesday? Yeah, last Tuesday. We had we dedicated an entire advisory to discussing this transition with the classes. And at least in the class that I was in, we seemed to have a very mature conversation about the logistics of it and how we would try to continue on to work on our projects. And to really double down on that, we are still going to continue working together with OC to work on the Hill project. And we really do think that this is going to open up a lot of new opportunities for us, especially because of the location. We're hoping to work very closely together with Evergreen Elementary and especially try to help with their bilingual programs or try to teach their students more. And we have also, not only is the Hill project in collaboration with OC, it's also in collaboration with, I think it was AmeriCorps. Yeah, I think it's AmeriCorps. So we have quite a bit of community involvement still. And our Friends of Cedar group has started to evolve a bit more. So we will hopefully be able to contribute a lot more to the community. And the community will help contribute to us too. So during these very difficult, trying times of transitioning to a new school, we're making sure that our students are also involved in the conversation. We just recently sent out a survey to ask students how involved they want to be in the transition of the new school. And I will say I've seen a lot of students fill out that survey, being very interested in speaking about the logistical sides of moving to a new campus.
Thank you, and it's good to hear that you guys want to be involved with that. It actually, in my mind, kind of lends to what the overall school actually is that project-based learning. So thanks, guys. And then Kaylee Allen from Choice.
This week we're holding our elections for class representatives, and they're going to meet with our ASB officers once per month to help plan school events, assemblies, spirit weeks, and all that. And then we also, next week on our Tuesday evening, we'll hold our monthly awards assembly for students who met adequate progress and attendance and behavior goals for November. And then we're also still in preparation for our annual winter celebration on December 19th, 5 to 7 p.m., which is open to everyone. So I encourage everyone to come. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's games, food, snacks, all that.
So the 19th, then everybody's invited, right?
Yes.
All right, 19th. Okay, 6.02, budget update with Clinton Sherman.
Good evening. I wanted to walk through an update of the budget, give some context. Some things will be reiterating some slides you've already seen, and then providing some other context, and then what we're doing moving forward. So, as we talked about before, there are really three major factors taking a big bite out of school. Before I get started, in a little bit I'll introduce Jennifer Priddy, who is the Deputy Superintendent of ESD 113, to provide some further context as we get a little farther down the road. The ESD has been a great partner, and she'll help represent a team that helps support us with some nuts and bolts things as we move through this process. So the district has a lack of non-restricted dollars, and that has really impacted what our fund balance. Normally, the fund balance we've had in the past has all been restricted. That isn't a healthy way to manage the budget. As we move through things, the local levy dollars are shrinking, and actually in doing some analysis, we actually receive slightly less levy dollars than we did in 2015. If you think about today's prices of things and salaries, those dollars just aren't going as far as they used to. Enrollment is the major factor for our funding, and as all districts, they took a dip during COVID. We've kind of plateaued through our recovery, and so now that we know that, we can plan accordingly and move forward. This is a slide I showed earlier about how we and why we took the apportionment advance. We received 22.5% of our revenue in July and August. That doesn't make a lot of sense for us. It's not how our expenses move, so we asked for that money earlier. That's what happened at the last board meeting. That money is coming at the end of this week from the Washington Treasury. In the 24-25 budget column, that is what you adopted in August and what we knew at the time. And so that picture has shifted as we close the books into a negative fund balance. So what that required us to do is kind of reforecast revenues, reforecast expenses, and get an understanding of where we are now and what we need to do moving forward. So the updated projections, that middle column that talks about this negative $3 million fund balance, that is after reforecasting revenues and expenses. And so knowing that we can't end in a negative fund balance, what has to happen to end in a positive? So that far right column is what we've revised, is that what our goals are to reduce our expenditure level to end with a positive. In general terms, that $400,000, we're looking for plus $1. That isn't really the solution to the long-term problem, though. I mean, this is a multi-year problem that we're dealing with. I reforecasted the revenues. They're roughly the same. There were some shifts around, but they're roughly the same. This is a chart you've seen before. I just wanted to bring it back. We're an $83 million district. About $44 million of that is actual basic ed, and the rest is grant dollars, categorical, restricted. Which means that a lot of the other differences come from the levy. One thing that came up at the last meeting was the prototypical school funding formula. And so I brought up, this is an older table that was used to explain how the funding model works. And so there's a lot of numbers on here, so I'll give just a little bit of context. If you look at school nurses under the K-6 elementary, our K-6 student population is about 2,000 students. What this chart is showing you is that it takes 5,263 students to generate one school nurse. And of course, we provide more than one school nurse for the 2,000 students. So we have about 2 school nurses providing services to those kids with less than half of the number of FTE. And so that's how this table works across the board. So it takes 7,200 students at Olympic Junior High to generate one school nurse, right? And that's, their student body is about 538. So I won't dive into it more, we can talk more about it, but it is just showing you that how the funding model works, it doesn't generate enough staffing FTE to do the job that we're required to do. I think that's really the point of this. I mean, 72,000 students for one social worker, right? I mean, that's just not how, it's unfeasible. So the next thing I want to talk about is how the dollars come in for those staffing members. So we're funded from the state $78,209 for each teacher. Thankfully, our teachers are more educated and have more experience, so they fall farther on the salary schedule. So our average salaries for our teachers is $90,000. Then most teachers have some sort of supplemental contract, whether it's coaching or extra days. The average for that for us is $6,700. So right off the bat, we know that we're not getting enough funding for the staffing levels. And now what I'm trying to show you is that we actually are under $20,000, $19,000 from what we get from the state to what we're paying out. And again, the levy dollars make up that difference. So here's a slide you've seen before as well. I updated some 2023 numbers. In 2018, you'll see that the levy amount dropped in 2019. And that was, we did this levy swap. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, which I'm prone to do. But that reduced what the local taxpayers could contribute. It kind of actually removed some local control by swapping and saying, okay, we're capping the levy at $1.50, when before that, the taxpayers would support the district at $4.38, right? So that's a $4 million drop that first year. And so that's why we're collecting a little less than we did in 2015, because we're kind of climbing back out of that. So that's where that assessed valuation growth is we're seeing, right? Like the assessed valuation growth has happened. We've all seen that in all our tax rolls, but the actual levy amount that we're collecting is a little less than 2015, which was pretty shocking when I dove into that. As I stated earlier, this is a complicated slide. I want to introduce Jennifer Pretty again. This is data we got from the ESD to talk about how these things adjusted for inflation are impacting districts of different size, and our district specifically. And Jennifer's been a great collaborator and will continue to work with us as we move forward. And so I'll step aside for a second.
Thank you, Chair Wellender and Board of Directors. Again, my name is Jennifer Pretty. I work for ESD 113, and we have been researching specifically kind of the well-being of school district finances and the revenue sources for school districts. And this is a particularly dense slide, so I'll walk through it slowly, but it tells a very important story about the Shelton School District and school districts across the state. So Clinton referred to local levy funds and state funding, and this is to focus on local funds, and that includes levies that voters approve, but also the state levy equalization funds that the state matches where districts don't have very high property values. And so what this is comparing is local funds in the 17-18 school year, so before the pandemic and before the state made changes to levy rules and to levy equalization, comparing that to the 22-23 school year. And what this shows you is at the very top, when you look at all districts across the state and compare those 2 years, districts have lost $114 per student. But when you think about that, you also have to remember that inflation has skyrocketed, and so the inflation-adjusted number for all students across the state is a loss of $400 per student. That's a lot of money. We all know that a bag of groceries was costing us $50 before the pandemic, and now it costs us $75 or $80 or $90, right? And that's happened to school districts also. But the next section on this slide is the Shelton School District. And you can see that in dollars Shelton has lost $600 per student in those levy and state levy equalization funds. And when you look at inflation and add that into the mix, Shelton has lost $800 per student comparing those 2 years. That's $800 that Shelton cannot devote to hiring more staff or hiring more supports for the school district, for the students, or for investing in extras for students around activities, athletics, and that kind of thing. Shelton is actually losing quite a bit when you compare Shelton to other school districts. With 4,200 students, if you follow down to the category that says 4,000 to 6,000 students, really hard to read because it's a very dense slide, Shelton has lost a lot more per student than other districts in that size category. So the Shelton School District has some pretty significant financial challenges when you look at how much local revenue has declined. But if you go to the next slide, there's some more challenges that Shelton faces. Oh,
I got it.
And that's when you look at how much the state is funding compared to how much it costs to provide the service. And so the first column is for special education. Again, a very dense slide, but it's showing you how much the state is funding compared to how much is being expended and the gap between those two resources. And year by year, you can see that the gap is significant for the special education program. The gap is significant when you compare how much the state is providing to fund substitute teachers compared to how much the district must deploy. For basic supplies, it's the same, and for transportation. And so when you look at this data on a per student basis, it's about $900 per student in the 22-23 year. So look at how much the state is funding compared to how much the district must spend. That gap is $900 per student. Added together, it's about $1,700 per student that Shelton can't spend to support staff and support students because of those 4 factors: the loss of local levy revenue, and then these expenses that are beyond state funding. Do you have any questions for me? I'll add one more factor. Shelton is not alone. This is something that all districts are experiencing, and in Mason County also. It is what districts face. Thank you.
I have a couple more, then I'll open up for questions, just provide a little more context. We're talking about this, this third column is called MSOCs, which is materials, supplies, and operating costs. These should be called NERCs, non-employee related costs. And these are costs that you just have to have to run a district. And they are, some are in the millions and some aren't. And that's fine, that's just what the costs are. One of the things I think is important about this slide is there are some things that aren't really expensive in the $85 million budget, but are also required that we can't get away from. And so like the audits, we have an audit every year that is valuable to us, it's valuable to the community, but we can't cut an audit cost, right? And the district has done a good job, even before I got here, moving through these MSOCs and trying to reduce and cut those down over time. So these are ones that are hard to get away from. Insurance, I'm sure you've all seen your insurance rates are skyrocketing as Florida and different things happen nationwide. There's only a handful of carriers that provide that service. Anyway, just some more context of what this looks like just to regularly operate a district. So what has happened and what we're doing now is decreasing some positions in the district office. We have reduced those MSOCs, those non-staff related costs. We're limiting subs. That's a big cost to the district, like we talked about earlier, which is a tricky thing. but also extra hours and overtime for classified positions. Those have become big ticket items as they accrue over a year. As you can imagine, there was a hiring freeze. There are furlough days that are being activated by the principals, the administrators, and the superintendent. And we also reviewed all the categorical funds that are restricted and seen where we could cover some qualified expenses that can create some savings. And that's where we're at now. And I think that's all we have for tonight. What questions do you have? Which I am sure there are many.
So wasn't this information available back when we approved the budget in the positive of $1 million? Now, negative 2.3, so that's 3.3 million, right, off. All this information about the increase in costs and the less money coming in wasn't available when we approved this budget?
Yeah, I think my understanding, so the budget process is it kind of starts off in the now, really, and in January, and it's kind of your best guess as you forecast things out. And that's one part of the equation. The second part is when you close the books for a year, our fiscal year ends in August 31st, but you don't really close the books through October and kind of November-ish. And in closing that books process, they identified some expenses that were way higher than they had anticipated. So yes, you're right. Some of the things were known, but there's some things at the end of the year as we close the books were unknown.
Well, that seems like in a 2-month period, that's awful lot of unknowns.
I agree.
Question I have is, we talked a lot about being underfunded by state and mandates and things like that. I know I'm asking you to prognosticate a little bit, but with the state being kind of underwater and all the freezes that are going on there, what do you predict that costing us next year as far as programmatic dollars and such?
Yeah, so this is a 105-day session legislatively, so it's a full biennium session, and there were some big asks coming from WASA and WASDA and WASBO and all the different groups that was totaling around $3 billion to fully fund education. But then when the state announced their deficit and their hiring freeze, just me speaking, I really think one of the things I'll look at is changing that levy cap of $2.50 because it doesn't cost them any money to do it. It's free to them to change that law and allow local taxpayers to pay more, which to me is low-hanging fruit for them to do. That levy swap has not worked out really well for any district. Just provide a little more context on that. So Shelton School District, the community approved like $4.38, I think it was, and then it went down to $1.50. So they removed that local control, but then said there was a swap. We're going to take it down to $2.50, but then we're going to give you 81 cents as a new state school tax. But $1.50 plus the 81 cents is not $4.38. So Shelton lost money right away, and a lot of districts did. So if I had a crystal ball, I would think that that's where they'll try to make the move, is push it back to local taxpayers.
Will they remove the 81-cent state tax then?
No, because that, all right. I tried to get in the weeds. So the 81-cent tax that you see on your tax bill does not come directly to the Shelton School District. It goes up to the state, and they do with it what they will. It's supposed to be earmarked for education, but I tried to track those dollars down years ago, and you couldn't have a trail of those dollars coming in and those dollars going out from the state.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
No, those are all great questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So if you're watching at home or following along and you want to look at that again, is that available online?
Yeah, I think these are recorded and put on the Mason Web TV. I'm
Okay.
available if people have questions and want to talk about it. I'm happy to do so. I've been doing that for 18 years. And then, yeah, we can post it online, I'm sure.
Okay. And then just to follow it up, I think part of the question is, if we got here and we're kind of surprised by it, how are we avoiding that in the future? So what steps are we taking to make sure that we don't get surprised again?
That's a great question. So before I came here, I watched a bunch of the Mason County TV, Web TV, which is really fast, awesome. And actually the budget process that Wyeth introduced like in think it was in June I watched one that he had revamped the budget process. That process is the process that keeps you from this. And so if we weren't in, if we didn't have a deficit now, the budget process that built this budget that we're in now is pretty right on. We need to build a fund balance back to, I think the board approved a 4% fund balance. We need to build it back to that, and then we can start operating as normal. But the problem now is, if we operated as normal now, we would still be in a deficit, and we can't maintain that deficit, right?
Following up, as you look around the state, other school districts, we're not the only one.
Sure.
What paths are you seeing? Is this how other school districts are climbing out of it? What are you seeing in terms of solutions around the state?
Well, as Superintendent Jesse has said before, every school district is different, so they have different avenues to help with this problem. Some people have kind of more robust capital projects funds that they can take a loan to help mitigate this. A lot of folks are waiting until their next levy renewal, because as assessed valuation has grown, they can, that $2.50 by the community can generate more revenue. And so it just depends on the district. And so we're having to live within what Shelton's options are. Yeah.
As you project out, with your crystal ball.
Sure, I love it.
How long before we can start to get on that plus side, before we're cutting and we're back to a stable staffing level?
Okay, so a handful of years, because if you took the people out, all these wonderful people that spoke before me, the math solution is really simple, right? But it's also the most harmful to your community and the most harmful to kids. So that's not what you do. So you make it take a little longer, because that's the right way to do it, to provide an education system for students. And so instead of doing it in 1 year and just decimating everything you're doing, you make it take 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
So if I can put that back, if I'm hearing you correctly,
Yeah.
we are going to take a while to try to mitigate laying off and RIFs as much as humanly possible, right? You're going to be slow.
I think minimizing, and this is conversations that Superintendent Jesse's been leading, like minimizing the impact in the classroom is the #1 goal.
Right.
Right?
Thank
I mean, your guys, the outcomes that were discussed at the last meeting, districts aren't seeing those outcomes. So you really don't want to mess with what's working in the classrooms. I mean, this stuff, it's one of the reasons I chose to come here, is because the stuff you guys are doing here is really impressive. So this is definitely a hurdle. I think we can move through this together and get through it. But yeah, that is the goal, is to minimize the impact of the classroom.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate the visuals. They're helpful, especially in outreach with legislators as we're trying to, explain our story and share with them where we need that funding gap closed. I'd also like to thank the ESD for coming and presenting and sharing your support. We were able as a group, some of us, to come and see your presentation at WASDA also, and it was very informative, and just thank you for the support and the visuals explaining our situation.
Yeah, of course.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us up to item number 7, the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at that?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Discussion and action items. 8.01, proposed revised policy number 6605, student safety, walking, biking, and riding buses. This will be the first reading with Robert Herron.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Thank you so much for allowing me to come before you this evening about the board policy and procedure change for 6605, student safety, walking, biking, and riding buses. And so the big gist of this change is that the policy had not been, the procedure has not been touched since 2011. So as we're trying to get through and making sure that all of our policies and procedures are being updated, that they're current with WACS, with the recommendation of WASDA. This is what was happening with 6605. So there's actually not significant changes in here. As they formed a committee and went through everything, they thought that the policy was pretty comprehensive to our needs, but there was a lot of things that needed to be cleaned up to align with the WACS. So in the back, you'll see the WACS that are referenced. Some of them are not current and have been stricken and updated with things that have been revised. Some things like the Safety Advisory Committee that's listed was something that actually the district never has done in anyone's memory that currently serves, right? Really all those things are determined by WSP and by WACS, and they are directly administered, and so the Safety Advisory Committee, as referenced, is not valid, and so that information has been updated. Also, there's an entire Safe Routes to School plan, which is a WAC and completely encapsulated, so that has been listed as requested by or recommended by WASDA. So most of these revisions are driven by WASDA recommendations, and so I don't think there's really, typical things that we've gone through is things, technology has changed, like to make sure we include vaping explicitly. Those things are also included. Otherwise, also the changes in student discipline and the policies related to that since 2011, those things are now back and in current with current district policy. So that's basically the change. I hope you had an opportunity to take a look, and if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
6605P, page 2. I didn't receive page 2 of the 4 pages in my board package. So I don't know if there was any changes to that.
There is changes on page 2, and that's in fact where the entire Safe Route to School plan.
It wasn't in my board package.
Okay. We will make sure we get those to you right away.
Thank you. Page 3, paragraph 3, the driver or bus supervisor shall provide the parent, it's lined out, and student with a copy of the report. Why would you not give the parents a copy of a report if their kids are misbehaving on the bus?
I believe that that was to be in alignment with WASDA recommendations when it comes to issues of student privacy and getting in alignment with the laws as they are in Washington now. And so it's not that, I don't think that in any way that a parent is prohibited from getting that except for what's limited by statute. And so I don't think that, that in any part of this would a parent be prohibited from receiving
Well,
this.
later on, it'll be given to the parent after, huh?
So if it's, so he's answering as if it's another, the victim of another student that's on the bus. But for the question of calling, so the administrator, so we've handed that off to the administration. And so the administrator at the school so that the student goes to will be the one that will contact the parent if there is anything that requires any level of discipline regarding students on the bus.
The driver or bus supervisor shall provide the student with a copy of the report, but not the parent?
They're just going to give that to the student, but the parent is going to get contacted. And if any discipline was happening, they would automatically generate a NDA, which is a notice of disciplinary action that would go to the parent, so that related to that.
And the only other thing is, I like how you took a lot of this possible disciplinary actions out and referred back to Board Policy 3241 discipline, so it makes it a lot more easy to read. I mean, that's the only other thing I have. And I'm looking forward to page 2.
Yeah, and I think that's the student, or sorry, it's one of the problems with policies, right, is that student discipline is something that is reviewed and frequently addressed and is so interconnected with so many other things, other policies and procedures, and so it's important for us to keep that updated and the references to them versus trying to repeat them all the way through, so yeah.
As a parent, though, I would like to be informed if my kid's misbehaving on the bus. I don't know why that would be invading the privacy of a student.
Yeah, I can't answer that.
Any other questions? I read through it. There's a lot of red and a lot of red in the RCWs, so it's obvious that they updated a bunch of laws.
Thank you for going through our policies and updating them. It's a constant battle to keep up with state guidance, so.
Anything else? Thank you. Okay, proposed policy number 3141, non-resident students. This will be the first reading. Ms. Tara Richardson.
So good evening. Just kind of some genesis, some background on this policy, because I know it looks all red, which means it's all new. We do have policies regarding student transfers. Right now in our district, we have one policy, it's 3130, and it covers all different kinds of enrollment and all different kinds of transfers. And so the purpose of bringing this to you this evening is to start the process of teasing that out and making it more in alignment with what WASDA recommends. So the policy before you tonight is the first of a couple more that you will see that help break out student transfers to enable us to track them better. Part of that tracking has to do with how we claim funds from the state. So we've all heard how important it is to have our student enrollment increased and so forth. And the policy tonight that we're looking at is about students who live outside of our district and who want to come and go to school in our district, which is a great thing. Right now, we have about 50 students that are in our records in terms of attending from outside the district, who live outside the district. This does not include students who attend from districts where there is no high school grade. So when we think about like McCleary, Griffin, Pioneer, and so forth, they are not affected by this policy. By law, they are allowed to attend any district that offers a grade that their home district does not. So we're talking about mainly here, this would be students who, whose parents work in the district, for example. We have lots of teachers who work for Shelton, and they bring their students with them, their children with them to attend school here. And we do have other cases like this. So it's not a very large population, but we must have this policy in place, and we must be able to track that we have a release from that home district to show that we have the right to claim that money. So when the auditor comes to visit, we can show that we have the policy in place and we have the documentation from that district. So again, tonight we're just looking at non-residents enrolled in. That's kind of a mouthful of a term, but again, it's students who live outside the district and who would like to attend here. In future policies, what you'll see are students who live in the district and want to attend a school other than their home school, as well as students who live in the district and who would like to attend elsewhere. So we'll be coming back to transfers again. So with that, are there any questions or anything, clarifications I can help with?
Good job. Just, can we number the pages is all?
Absolutely.
Because it's confusing, thanks.
Yeah, thank you for the work. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looked pretty self-explanatory and not a lot, so thank you.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That brings us up to item number 9, board comments. We'll start there in the end with Mr. Dale.
Yeah, I just want to thank our student representatives again and appreciate all the updates, particularly Cedar High School. I know that was a surprise for you guys and appreciate your feedback and willingness to be part of that next solution. Also just want to say thank you to everybody who shared a comment. I know how hard it is to get up and share and to speak publicly, and this only works if we have community involvement, so I appreciate the community being here tonight. And that's it.
Thank you to the students for your reports. You have a great attitude on Cedar changing. I mean, the district's put in a situation that they're just doing the best they can, right, with what they got. You have a great attitude for the change. And thank you for your report, and hope to see you on the 19th. Thank you to the community members always for speaking out.
Okay.
I just haven't heard yet. A thank you to all the students from the different schools who participated in the parade and the events over the weekend. You know, the Christmas events are always my favorite part of the year. It's always fun to see the band and everybody out there, and everybody just be safe this holiday. Thank you for coming.
Okay, again, thank you for all the community comments tonight. And we don't have a meeting later on in the month, so the next time we get together will be in January. Icy roads are forecasted here the rest of the week, so be careful with all the kids out there on the roadway. Have yourself a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you guys in January. There's no exempt or executive session, so I would take a motion for adjournment.
A motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and we're done.